And again, I want to welcome you to this Lunch and Learn. So for those of you who need to munch, please feel free to do so. And I'm Dr. Nancy Zaire, and I want to welcome you, and at the same time want to thank you, because I know taking time away from your work is a big commitment. There's so many other pulls on our time. So the fact that you're sharing it with us and me today, I definitely appreciate that. As we get started, for those of you who can write in the chat box, I'm going to ask you, are you here because you're looking to increase client acquisition, get more sales? If so, put the word sell in the chat box. And again, I'm going to watch that chat box from time to time. And the second question I want to ask you is, would you like to learn to communicate better, especially in a sales situation? And if the answer to that is yes, then put the word talk in the chat box, if you would. So sell, talk, and would you like to know the secret for how you can do both? I'm guessing the answer is yes. It's called AlikeAbility. AlikeAbility. So, quick story about Mike as a realtor that I met some years ago. Mike worked for an organization that dealt with both rental property and property for sale. So, from time to time, which is what exactly happened to him, he picked up the phone in the office, and there was a renter on the other line who was inquiring about purchasing his first property. And this was exciting news to Mike because it represented potential income from the commission he would gain by representing the buyer. And Mike did what came naturally to him, which was to educate this person. After all, he was a first-time potential buyer. He educated him on the real estate market and all the things he'd need to undertake in order to move forward and make that first purchase. He sensed that somehow he wasn't quite connecting because the other person got a bit silent. And so what was Mike's response to that? Well, he educated him some more. He gave him even more information, and shortly thereafter there was a click on the phone. They got disconnected, and he later learned from another member in the office that the gentleman called back and was now being represented by a different agent. Mike lost out, and wouldn't he like to be able to communicate better in a sales situation? Well, for sure. Here's our agenda. The agenda is I'm going to talk about my journey very briefly, going to share with you the 3 myths around selling, and then I'm going to talk about a 5-step system that can help you be more effective as a communicator in sales situations to acquire more clients. And I will offer you some resource and a special gift for those who stay on for the entire session. If you have questions, please put them in the chat box or find yourself some paper and pen handy, because I won't be interrupting until I come to the end of the entire presentation. So please reserve your questions for the end. But make note of them, because I do want to answer, and I will stay on the program until all your questions are answered. So quickly, my journey, which began about 10 years ago, and that is I left my job. I was employed at Springfield College. I was a professor. I voluntarily made a choice to leave because I had an entrepreneurial bug. And shortly after I made that choice and resigned, I got seriously injured. And that injury required a lot of financial resources. In fact, I'm the kind of person that likes to use alternative care, which I pay for out of pocket. So consequently, I was running through my, my resources, and it caused a house that I owned to be foreclosed. Well, that plunged me into a depression, plus the fact that my best friend also died during this period, and I was really feeling like I was in the muck. But there's a happy ending, because I'm not a quitter. And what I did is I got myself a coach. Now, I find, and you may have found this to be true in your own experience, that having an outside perspective of somebody who's been there, done that, and succeeded is really an important asset and benefit. And so that coach helped me return to my roots. Well, I'm a psychologist. I have an undergraduate degree in psychology, a master's in social work, as well as a doctorate. And by returning to my roots of what I knew best, psychology, I then looked at what I'd been doing recently, which was sales. And I developed a system in which I combined my knowledge of psychology with how to sell more effectively. And since that time, over 300 people have benefited from this system, which I call AlikeAbility. So I want to share this powerful tool with you, my friends and colleagues who've gathered on this call. I'm now going to transition and talk about 3 myths that are very common among salespeople. And myth number 1 is that sales is a numbers game. And I'm sure you've heard that. And indeed, most of us are advised that we have to constantly add more and more and more people into the funnel because, you know, only 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 7 and 1 out of 5, and if we're lucky, it's a little lower than that, will actually say yes. Well, I tell you that's a lie, because the truth is that when you know how to present yourself to your prospect and you speak their language, you individualize the approach, you will hear more yeses and less nos. Myth number 2 is related to that, and it's that one pitch fits all. Many companies, especially those in direct sales, they spend thousands of dollars presenting and training and giving us a specific pattern of words that we're to use, and maybe even a flow chart, you know, that we use in our presentations, and they tell us this is what's going to help you make that sale. But again, I tell you this is a lie, because the truth is that you need to make that presentation using the words that your prospect will respond to the best. Because when you know what their values are and you speak that language, they're like putty in your hands. And the third myth is that you have to be a born salesperson. You know, that person who just kind of cultivates everybody as a friend and just, boy, knows everyone. Well, again, this is a lie, because you can learn it. Sales is a skill, and consequently, you can learn it. And that's why I'm here. I have the excellent capacity to take complex information, distill it into its gold nuggets, and then return it to you in a way that makes sense and that you can apply. So if you're ready to increase your business acquisition as much as 300%, then you're ready to learn about the AlikeAbility System. Now, I've used that term a few times, AlikeAbility, and some of you are scratching your head saying, no, that's not a word in the English dictionary, and you're right, it isn't. I made it up. So I get to define it, and here is the definition. It's a skill that raises the perception of being alike. It's a skill, hence you can learn it. It raises the perception, a feeling, a thought within the prospect that says, wow, you get me, we're alike. And now I really would like you, even if you are in the midst of chewing your lunch here, to put down your fork and write in the chat box, why do you think this would be valuable to you to have a likability? What possibly could be the benefit for being a likable? And I'm going to stop, and I'm actually going to see what you may have written and share some of the answers. People buy from people, not from companies, so they need to like you. They need to be able to connect with you. It's really true. They need connections. Yes, better connections leads to sales. That's absolutely true. And of course, they need to know, like, and trust you. Any other ideas that people would like to share? Yes, people want to feel and know that you get them, that you understand where they're coming from. Boy, and the commonalities that bind us, great answers, really excellent answers. So let me share with you some of the thoughts I have. First of all, the benefit is that comfort goes up when we're alike. People relax, they're at ease, comfort is high, the communication can flow better when we are talking the same language. But here's a really important part: sales resistance falls away. Now, everybody has sales resistance. We love to buy, we hate to be sold. So when you are likable, sales resistance drops away, and that builds trust. And as many of you commented, that know, like, trust factor is absolutely essential in a sales transaction. And trust, of course, means we're in rapport. Now, many of you know the name of my business is Rapport Builders, and that we have an expression in our company: when there is no rapport, there will be no sales. But when you know rapport, you're going to know sales. Hence, rapport is at the foundation to every sales. So I want to share with you how the AlikeAbility System came to be. And it's because I, frankly, did not grow up thinking that I would sell for a living. I studied psychology because I enjoyed people and I wanted to help people, wanted them to communicate better, and I wanted nothing to do with selling because I saw it as manipulative. Perhaps you did too. However, even though I had lots of educational degrees, I knew nothing about selling, and so I went on a search to learn. And I came across a book by Tony Alessandro in which he introduced the platinum rule. Now, I'm sure you're familiar with the golden rule. Treat others the way I want to be treated. It's good advice because I certainly want to be treated well. However, the platinum rule reverses it in a subtle way. It says treat others the way they want to be treated. Think about that difference. The way they want to be treated makes all the difference in the world. For example, I happen to be gluten, free and lactose intolerant. And if your favorite dessert, is chocolate pudding, you've struck out with me. So if you treat me the way that prospect wants to be treated, a bowl of fruit would be a better choice. So let me share with you the 5 steps in the AlikeAbility System. Step number 1 is to know that there are 4 ways that people want to be treated, 4 different ways that people make buying decisions. Hence, you need to present to them in the way they want to be sold to. Step number 2, you need to know your style. And why is that important? Because we tend to sell the way we buy. Think for a moment back to Mike the realtor. He buys because he is well informed and has information. And so he assumes that any person he is selling to is in the same mindset. But unfortunately, he turned off his buyer who had a very different approach to buying. So you need to know your style. Step number 3, diagnose the other person's style. And I help my clients do that within 30 to 60 seconds. Yes, I do. And step number 4, and this is where you become likable, is you need to duplicate their style, but you need to do it authentically. This is not a monkey see, monkey do process. And step number 5 is to downplay and discard that part in you that could turn people off. Hence, Mike needed to turn off the education and up the relationship. So let's take a look at step number 1, identifying 4 different ways people want to be treated in a buying situation. And it brings me to personality systems. Now, I bet you know a few personality systems. Has anyone heard of DISC? If so, please put that in the chat box, DISC. It's a very popular one used in corporations. Some of us know Myers-Briggs. That tends to be more popular in the social services arena. Turns out there are over 200 systems, birds, animals, objects, colors. Well, I'm going to introduce you to the one I created called Lens. And as you notice, there are 4 letters, hence it is also making use of the 4 different styles. Lens is an acronym, and it stands for the L for learning. You can also think of it as L or green. The E in Lens is energizing, or you can think of it as E or red. The N in Lens is for networking, and again, you can think of it as N or gold. And the S in Lens stands for stabilizing, and again, it's blue or S, the Lens system. Now, my system is based upon values, the values by which people prioritize their lives and make buying decisions, the values. And I'm showing a picture of fruits and vegetables because we know that this is valuable to the body. Fruits and vegetables contain nutrients, vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals that our bodies need. But the fruits and vegetables you like and the ones that I prefer could be very different. And yet, both have value to the body. Well, it's the same with the values in the Lens system. So let's look at the values of the learning style. And of course, the number 1 value is learning. This is the person that takes a deep nosedive into information. It's Mike, right? The realtor. They gobble up, they surf the web, they read reports, they're constantly educating themselves. They love to learn. And it's a high value, a high priority to get data and information. A second value for the learning style is intelligence. Now, they do tend to be fairly bright people, but they absolutely value other people's intellectual capacity. And they, bow down and, appreciate somebody's expertise. They very much want to be an expert in their own field. Very closely related to intelligence is competence. Competence is actually applied intelligence. It's a skill, and it's the ability to affect and create results. And again, the learning style, they want to master things, and they want to be competent, and they value other people who can fix and repair things. And finally, another value that I've selected is the big picture. These are people who think globally about universal truths and general principles. And, fairly, you understand, they're that geek, they're that intellectual mind. Now, this person, when they're making a buying decision, they're buying information. So, one of you mentioned that you're a Mary Kay representative. No, they're not buying makeup. They're buying information about skincare. And you need to provide that kind of information. They're also buying solutions. And again, you might think that you're recruiting people for a project, but actually you're solving problems. That's what they're buying. Now, this person, when they make a choice, they go for things that are practical. Practical means that, they solve a problem. They fix something. And they also go for things that are utilitarian, that have a lifelong or long life of endurance. Again, usefulness over and functionality. These people are slow buyers. In fact, they are the slowest buyer of the 4. It takes as many as 7 or more contacts. And if you're doing digital contacts, 12 or more touch points before this person can make up their mind. Of course, what are they doing during that time period? Research, homework. They are learning and reading and getting more information to help them decide. And if you interrupt them in their decision process, they will throw up their hands and just resign from the whole process, even though they truly wanted whatever it was you're offering. So be aware, this is a slow buyer. You need a system for staying in touch. Tell you about one of my clients. His name is Lou. Lou found it very aggravating, frankly, to work with the learning buyer because they're slow decision makers. And when Lou is in his work mode, he is action and energy personified. And so when he understood that these people needed information, well, Lou shifted his presentation, and now every week when he and I talk, he tells me about a new client he has acquired. He's a photographer and home stager. Energizing. We're moving on to the energizing person, or red. And this is a person, their number one value is freedom. Freedom. They want no bosses, no limits, no rules, no authority figures, no ceilings. This is the person who wants to dive into life and grab the gusto. And talk about grabbing things and diving there into action, massive action. This is another huge value in the energizing personality style. They have a little bit of ADD. They're constantly on the move, here or there. They overschedule. They come late because they just can't get enough of what's going on. They also value excitement. I think of them as adrenaline junkies because they love to live on the edge. They grab for opportunities. They take risks. You know, this is that early adapter, and they just are, they like to feel it. And they're competitive. They're driven to win. It's about coming in first and being the best and being the only. These are their values. Now, some of you probably just noticed, as I spoke, my vocal qualities changed because this person, you got to get energized when you talk to them. And what are they buying? Again, they're buying an adventure. And so you think you're selling survey equipment? David, you're not selling that. You're selling an adventure in enclosing their yard with a fence or whatever it might be. They're buying an experience. And those of you who are offering your services to them, that is part of the experience. Are you treating them like a VIP? Are you giving them the red carpet treatment? Are you seeing where I got the word red, the color red that goes with this style? Because they're on fire and they want to be treated special. Now, when they choose things, it's got to be trendy and hip and, it's got to be modern and on the cutting edge. And they want things that are unique and outstanding and no one else has. They want to be the first. Remember, winning. Now, this is your fastest decision maker. One or two contacts, and that's it. They make up their mind because they're on the go, folks. They don't take time to learn or do research. They want problems solved and done because they're on to the next exciting adventure. I tell my clients it's one and done. Do it then and there. Now, my client, River, one of my very first clients in the AlikeAbility System, sold life insurance. Life insurance is not a quick process. It usually requires filling out paperwork, figuring out, the right policies to sell and so forth. It takes time. He was dealing with an energizing client. I said to him, River, this is what you need to do. He did it. He landed that person the very first time. That's how you have to work. It's one and done. That's how you acquire an energizing client. The networking people, hearts of gold. Number one value is relationships. This is a person who wants to connect with you. They want to form a bond. They want to be your friend. They're about authenticity. It needs to be real and genuine and authentic. They don't like artificial things. They don't like phony baloney, and they smell it out. Another value of theirs is that they need to be doing something of significance, something of a higher calling, something that makes them feel fulfilled or contributes to the betterment of humanity. They're very much about causes. And finally, they're all about getting along. peaceful coexistence, harmony, singing kumbaya. Yes, these are their values. And so when they're buying things, they're buying a relationship, they're buying a friend, and they're buying a bond. They're buying a connection. This is the person that invites you to Sunday dinner. You know, they're not looking for a transaction. They're looking for you. And I know one of you put that directly in our chat box, that they're buying you. And they're choosing things that are casual, down to earth, laid back, no pretense. And they're also choosing things that are comfortable, soft and flowy and easy. And again, you know, laid back. They are quick buyers, not as quick as our energizing bunny, but they're 2 to 3 contacts, they can figure it out. And for those of you taking note, please circle this, +1. Now, I could have added +1 to 2 to 3, but I kept it separate for this reason. Within 24 hours of this person saying yes, they get cold feet. Why? Because are we really friends, or was it just a transaction? So within 24 hours of their saying yes, you need to reconnect with that person. You need to give them a phone call. You need to give them an email message or text and let them know, I'm just thinking about you and I'm so glad we're going to be working together. They need you to be their friend. Quick story about Judy. Judy is the energizing style, as you might be able to tell from her getup. You know, she is, you know, ready to sell at the drop of a hat. Well, the networking style is extremely leery of people like Judy. They don't like to be a transaction. They don't like that competition. They don't like the materialism that Judy represents. And when Judy understood that, and again, we talked about the importance of forming a relationship. 95% of the sales conversation will be personal. And Judy, that means that she had to talk about herself and ask questions and not just go for the kill, the sale. Well, when Judy understood that, it changed everything. And now she's doing tremendous business with networking buyers. And finally, let's turn to stabilizing. And their #1 value is stability. They hate change. Folks, they want things that are solid and secure and going to be there for a lifetime. Another value is that they're big on planning. And planning includes a budget. This is a person who comes with a very strong budget. They do not budge from their budget, and you need to respect that. Otherwise, they will probably just walk away entirely. Another value is that they follow rules. They are by the book, and they want to make sure that every I is dotted and T is crossed, and that we are performing as expected. And talk about performance, it's about tradition. They are all about a nod to the past, doing it the way it was done in the other generation, following a tradition, following those norms. When they're buying things, they're buying safety. They want to be safe. They remember that security, they don't like change, and they're looking for security. They're looking for a system, a process, a structure. And they choose things that are classic, meaning it never goes out of style. It's timeless. And they can always count on it. You know, they don't like change. And they choose things that are conservative. Again, a nod to the past. They're not radical. They're not the first ones to try anything. They need to know that other people have done this and have succeeded before they go forward. So testimonials and stories are a very important part of the sales process for them. They tend to be slow buyers. It takes them about 5 to 7 contacts before they make up their mind. And what are they doing during that time period? They are checking the Better Business Bureau, and they're watching to see how structured and organized you are. Well, this is my client, Patricia, and Patricia is in the IT field, and honestly, When it came to the stabilizing person, as you can see from her outfit, she's a little bohemian, obviously strong networking style, and she wanted very much to cultivate this client. It was a hotel chain, and again, when I told her about what to expect from the stabilizing buyer, and she began to follow that instruction, she landed the biggest contract of her life. So this stuff works. So that was step number 1, 4 buying styles, 4 of them. They buy for different reasons. Step number 2 is to know your style. And knowing your style can be a lot of fun. In fact, I bet right now some of you are trying to figure out which one you are. So again, I'm going to invite you in the chat box, and I'm going to look and see, what style do you think you are? Oh, I got somebody who thinks that they are the energizing style. Yes. Oh, and a networking one here. Oh, the green one. Yep, that's the learning style. Another networking person. Fabulous. I welcome you all. Interestingly enough, we don't seem to have any stabilizing people today. Well, Sharon, you're high in that. I know you are. Oh, another learning person. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So some of you are wondering which one you are. Well, remember, you're a combination of all 4. And I bet some of you were already thinking that and saying, I can't make up my mind. I think I'm like maybe 2 of them. Well, you're a combination of all 4, but here's the interesting thing. In a sales situation, one style becomes dominant. Well, if one style is dominant and there are 4 different ways people need to be treated and approached, that means only 25% of the time you are connecting with that person naturally. And that, if you do the math, that means 75% of the time, the way you are approaching your prospect is not the way the prospect wants to be treated. No wonder why in sales there's an expression, it takes a lot of no's before you get a yes. And it's because you're not matched. This is also the reason for the myth that sales is a numbers game. Again, when you know who you're speaking with and you shift yourself to be alike your prospect, you will make more sales. So step 2 is knowing your style, learning about its strength, learning about its weaknesses and deficits. There are rough edges to every style. Every style drives the other 3 bonkers. And the blind spots. What are you doing that is sabotaging your ability to connect with people and acquire more business? And of course, your values, because I help my clients use their values to become alike their prospect. So it's done with authenticity. Okay, step 3, we need to diagnose the other person, our prospect style. I mentioned that I help my clients do it within 30 to 60 seconds. Yeah, less than a minute, because the quicker you know the other person's style, the quicker you can shift yourself to start presenting and speaking that language. How do we do that? Well, the clothing they wear, including their accessories and their shoes, their vocal qualities. Now, some of you, the only time you really talk to people is on the phone because you do things virtually. So can you tell the difference between people's vocal qualities? If you go back and listen to this recording, I tried to show you some differences in the energizing and networking styles for sure. Their behaviors. There are very different behaviors. And again, if you're with somebody in person, or again, their manners on the phone, you can tell what their style is. Their correspondence, if they're texting you, or there's email correspondence, or again, if you read their LinkedIn profile, which brings us, that's another area. For those of you who get to go to their homes or their office, how do they decorate? That's yet another way. And I mentioned social media. Every person leaves a telltale fingerprints all over their social media as to what their style is, including websites for companies. Yes, even companies have styles. So that's step number 3. Step number 4 is to duplicate theirs. This is where you become likable. And as I've mentioned several times, it's about duplication authentically. This is not a mirroring technique. I know some of you may know neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. You put your eyes in a certain position, you might cock your head, etc. No, this is about the values that your prospect has, and you're sharing those values because all values are valuable. So authentically. And let me share, and Sharon actually is on the line, and Sharon, I will update this picture because yes, you look a lot prettier in person now than you did on this picture. But Sharon has been using my system for some time now, but in 2016 to 2017, she compared her numbers and she found a 270% increase in sales using my services. And currently, I also have a client company called Fast Signs of Orlando, and I'm doing sales training via the web. And first month I did the training, which was the month of May. Between the month of May and June, they experienced a 300% increase in sales. And they know that that was due to a shift in how their sales force was working with prospects. So step number 5, it goes back to step number 2. If you understand your style, you're going to need to downplay or discard what doesn't match. And that includes those rough edges, like Mike the realtor, who kept educating, and the blind spots, because he was blind to what it was his client really needed and wanted. So there it is, 5 steps to the AlikeAbility System. Define the 4 styles, determine yours, diagnose your prospect, duplicate or match that style, and downplay and discard what doesn't match. So a summary of what we've covered so far: I've talked about my journey, I've talked about myths that are common to sales, and I've gone over the AlikeAbility System. Now, for some of you, you're saying, wow, that was great material. That's enough. I'm on my way. I can take it from here, Nancy. And that's great. But a few of you are wondering, there's more to the system. And especially, as Sharon can attest, as you explore it and go deeper, there is a lot of complexity, despite the fact that it's also a very simple system to apply. And for those who are wondering what might come next, I have a very special offer. And that offer is Seize Your Sales Success. It's a program in which I am providing an individual personal consultation, one-on-one, just with you. I'm going to ask you to bring it to that consultation, which we'll schedule either in person or over Zoom like we're doing now. I'm going to ask you to bring a prospect. So for example, Gary might be your prospect. And I'm going to ask for you to tell me what you know so we can identify their style, look at their fingerprints over social media. So we'll take a look at Gary on LinkedIn, and this is actually Gary's real LinkedIn profile. We will also go to his Facebook page, and he does happen to have a Facebook page. If he had a website, we would go to that. If there was any correspondence, I'd ask about that too. And because of that, I'm going to help you understand and diagnose what his style is. And then I'm going to prescribe exactly the approach that you can take, the words to use that will help connect successfully with that prospect. Don't you think you're going to have tremendous confidence when you're armed with that kind of information and advice? Absolutely. Your confidence is going to be through the roof. And there's a good chance you're going to acquire a new client, which is exactly what happened to one of my clients. Her name is Susan, and Susan was asking about a client, and we looked up this person, and I said, here's what to do. She texted the individual because that was the style that this person needed. 2 hours later, I got a response from her. I got hired. So it works. And there's a bonus along with that personal consultation. I made reference to the fact that there's a video, If the Shoe Fits. It's a very short little video, but it goes over the 4 personality styles so that you can figure out what someone's style is just by looking at their shoes. Now, isn't that a novel thing to do? What kind of footwear are they wearing? And you can figure out who they are and what approach to take. Okay, so some of you are saying, oh, this sounds fantastic. It's great, but there's got to be, what's the budget here? What's it going to cost me to do this program? Well, Seize Your Sales Success is a $300 program, the personal consultation plus the video. However, because you have taken the time to be on this program, and because I am looking to connect with new prospects and clients, I'm offering it today for a bargain basement price of $97. Whoa, $97. It's phenomenal. You don't want to pass this by, but it does expire on the 4th of July. So if you have some prospect that you really want to connect with, now's the time to do it. And you register at AlikeAbility.info. AlikeAbility.info. And I have a bonus for the first 5 people who take action, because I like to reward people who are quick decision makers. Yeah, those energizers and networking style out there. For the first 5, you're also going to get what my clients lovingly refer to as my cheat sheet. All 4 personality styles are listed, their values, a quick description, and then it also says exactly 2 or 3 ways that you can connect with them, tips for making that sale. So the cheat sheet is a $150 value, and it comes to the first 5 people who register at AlikeAbility.info. So you need to register by July 4th. It's only a $97 investment. AlikeAbility.info. And I did say that there would be a gift for anyone who stayed on the call. So if you're on the call now, here's your gift. It's the 4 magical questions. Now, these are questions, 1 for each of the 4 personality styles, that absolutely guarantee you will be in rapport with that individual. In fact, it's a good way to test your rapport. Again, this is a $150 value, but it's my gift to you. And what you need to do is just email me, Nancy at rapportbuilders.com. And for those of you who can see visually, I've accentuated the Z at the end of Rapport Builders so that you know how to spell my company name properly. And for those who are listening on the phone, Rapport, R-A-P-P-O-R-T, Builders, B-U-I-L-D-E-R-Z, stands for Zare, which is the last letter of my name. So Nancy at rapportbuilders.com. That's my gift. And now the doctor is in. I'm going to answer questions for the people that are here live. For those of you who are watching the recording, you may email me at Nancy at rapportbuilders.com. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. And I want to thank you for your time. Again, I know that's your most precious commodity. So at this point, folks, I'm going to stop the recording, and I'm also going to